Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls across the country. Mark Mancini here. This is the second show of the night. It's the Pigskin Preview. It's a long-running show. The NFL Weekly, Chris Rose and Baltimore Blaine running it. I'll be producing it in a matter of minutes. I know Chris Taylor's coming through. 347-205-9631. It's not a call-in show, and I notice we're getting some 617 area codes and everything popping up to 303s. Just listen in because they're not taking calls on this show. We've been stating that before. It's a show where they want to be the forefront of it. They'll listen to your comments. And before I give it over to Chris Rose and give him the podium and the mic and the red carpet, you just heard previously the Halo Heat with Benny Bam and Jim Campanis Jr. Last night it was prime time in the ATL. Todd Quarter, Stephanie Stallworth, and JJ. Tomorrow night you can turn in or listen in, whatever you want to do. It'll be the specialty show, Statue of Liberty Sports, All Access New York. That'll be followed by Left Turn at Alcatraz at All Access San Francisco at 5:30. That'll be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. More and more shows are coming. Next week, Detroit will come in. And November 5th, it'll be Snowman in the morning. That's an early rise for Chicago. This guy's going 8 in the morning, Chicago time, 6 in the morning on the West Coast. So an early drive time in Los Angeles, you can tune it in. That'll be 347-205-9631. I know Cleveland's coming, Milwaukee's in the works, and there's a college football show in the works here momentarily. Without further ado, it's not all about me, it's about these guys. Chris, take it away, my good friend, as you got a lot of things to talk about, including the Deadskins last night in New Orleans.
Well, for some reason, Mark, you seem to be you stick with that team and you love them and you just won't let them go. So while we all make fun of you, we don't agree with you. You got to say that you're loyal. You keep sticking with them year after year and picking them for the Super Bowl. So I'm not sure how that's looking because loyalty something. I don't know. That must be some kind of word for it. So we have Baltimore Blaine here. We have Christopher Taylor who's going to come in just a little bit. So we're going to take a look back at some of the things that happened over the weekend, Week 5, and kind of what they mean moving forward. And then we're going to look at Thursday's game. So let's get right into it. Let's get straight into it. And let's start with you there, Mr. Baltimore Blaine, because one thing that has been an Achilles heel for your team has been them playing down to lesser teams. Now, before the Browns fans start going crazy, I want you guys to know that I'm not saying that it's necessarily that the Browns are a bad team and Baltimore's that much better. I mean, hey, they just won the game. But at the same time, I think, offensively they had the worst game they've had. Special teams had a lot of hiccups. That was not the best product that Baltimore can put out there. So I'll go over to you, Blaine, and then we'll go to Coach Christopher and kind of just look a little bit about the positives and negatives from both teams, and we'll let you kind of vent on what happened to the Ravens this week and how they lose, not even score a touchdown.
Well, I'll say it, Chris, that the Browns are not as good as the Ravens right now. The Ravens lost the game. The Browns, kudos to the Browns. They played hard and they got the V. But I saw one Browns fan online with the headline, "The Cleveland Browns destroy the Baltimore Ravens," and I went at him right away and said, how can you say that about a 12-9 game? That's one team that went into overtime, almost used up all of overtime to say that one team destroyed another. Pump your brakes, Cleveland Brown fans. You have a good team finally. You're an up-and-coming team, and you deserve this victory. But as I said in the Pick'em show, this game concerned me. Now, I picked the Ravens to win this game. The Ravens should have won this game. They had every opportunity to win this game, even with the mistakes that they were making. And believe me, this was a team loss. They made enough mistakes on each side of the ball, every aspect of the game. But this should have been a Baltimore win. Michael Crabtree is playing like Rashard Perryman right now, dropping passes. He had 3 passes that he dropped, including a touchdown at the end of regulation. The others for first downs. Joe Flacco was unfocused. As he looked like Joe Flacco of last year. When Joe Flacco does not buy into a game or a plan, you can see it on his face. He looks like a deer in headlights. We were watching, my group and I were watching the game, and the first thing we said, "Oh no, look at his face. He just looks like he's lost," and he plays accordingly. The defense played well enough, most of in regulation, but again, they haven't given up a touchdown in the second half. But they gave up the big play at the end of the game. Marty Morningwake's play calling sucked. It was unimaginative. It was predictable. Marty has no concept of no feel for in-game adjustments, and he loves to throw the ball. And one more thing I want to say real quick. Even though it's a passing league, and I heard this stat today, now Google it if you want to verify it. I haven't had time to verify it yet, but I hear that the only active quarterback to throw for more than 40 times a game and have a winning record is somebody named Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers has a losing record when he throws for over 40. Also, Drew Brees has a losing record when he throws for over 40. You've got to have balance. You've got to have balance. I don't care if it is a passing league. You have to have balance. Did I talk too much?
Well, I know. I agree with you absolutely, Blaine. Running game is ultimately, as we're finding out, going to be the thing that's going to hold teams in the long run. Hey, how we doing, man?
Let's introduce you here.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is Coach Taylor. But again, the running game is important. As we're finding out, running game are going to be the thing that's going to hold teams as we get further and further. I think, you talk about Baltimore. I think with an improved running game, it'll just help elongate Flacco. I mean, earlier in the season, Flacco came out. He started to look like the old Flacco that we liked, the Super Bowl Flacco, the one that was strong, managing the game pretty well and not turning the ball over. But again, like you said, he looked disinterested this week as far as the body language was concerned. Now, kudos to Cleveland. We have to say that their defense has always been a stronghold. They got a lot of talent on that defensive side, and they're a little bit excited with Baker Mayfield, behind the range now. And so, and this has been a long time coming. This is what we've been building to with Cleveland when we talked about how much talent that they're starting to pack up. And then with the draft, they got some great defensive picks, and they got the picks that we wanted. I know I criticized it initially, but it looks like it's starting to pan out. So I would say that Baltimore just met a competitive Cleveland team, and hasn't that always been the case? Cleveland has that division there has always been a really competitive division in itself. And so I think we're seeing the tail end of that. But one of the things that you brought out that you talked about was Crabtree. And you talked about how he was playing and dropping passes. And let's be honest, is this any different than the Crabtree that we've always seen? This is why San Francisco was willing to let him go. This is why the Raiders was willing to let him go. Let's be honest. Hands haven't always been his strong suit since he's been in the league. And I think the minute they start to turn those things around, they start to get a rhythm. And as you said, start to expand their playbook. Let's be honest, the Baltimore Ravens of the past haven't always had to expand the playbook because they just been so horrible offensively. But again, I want to say that's because Flacco hasn't been healthy. So I think that's the take I want to add on that and that spin. So maybe we'll see something different moving forward. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But how you feel about that, Chris? Did we disappear?
My fault. I was going off all about the draft picks, and I was on mute there. You were mentioning the draft picks there, and I want to go on and just talk about the difference of Cleveland in the past and those first-round draft picks and all the misses and all the quarterback misses that they've made over the years. And you look at the 3 first-round draft picks that they've made last year and this year: Myles Garrett, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward. And Denzel Ward's a star. already. A lot of people wanted them to pick Nick Chubb. I think that's when you said, you didn't agree with it. Maybe you wanted them to get a different quarterback. Maybe you think they should have got Chubb, like a lot of people did. But Ward is special. He blocked that Tucker field goal, which really changed the game, ended up saving the game for him. He was an absolute animal on the side there. He keeps making plays week after week. He's got one of the best ratings on Pro Football Focus of passer rating against. I mean, the kid is special. And that, I think, the front office, I think the coaching staff is full of it, but the front office has put them in a position to win. They're making smart decisions. They're making smart moves for the most part. But the draft picks, they really put together a base for this team that I think is going to last for a long time. So while the Browns are really good, I think this is more of Baltimore kind of having a bit of an off game. But, Browns are 2-2-1. That's technically almost the winning record. I guess it's about as even as you can get. That's 500, but that's a lot better than we thought they were going to be. They haven't won a game on a Sunday in a very long time, so, props to the Browns. I think that we're going to be talking about them as a dangerous team for a while. And I really like what Baker's doing. I like the decision-making. We were talking about this with Mark Mancini off air. Haven't seen a lot of the cockiness. I haven't seen any problems. He seems to be a team player. Seems to be really having fun out there. Teammates love him. I think that the kid, made that jump of maturity and work ethic just at the right time to go along with some serious skills. And I think that the Browns have found the quarterback. So I really like watching the games. I like watching the Browns now, which is something I never thought I'd say. So no, it's exciting, but I think that at the end of the day, Baltimore's going to pick it back up. Maybe this is that little slap they needed to wake up and get ready for the rest of the year. Here's one where we all wanted to see what was going to happen. At the beginning of the year, we talked about the NFC being much better than the AFC. The NFC teams are consistently losing to the AFC, and the AFC is kind of putting it together. You have the Eagles, we're going to talk about in a bit, and the Vikings. And everyone thought were going to be juggernauts that look a lot less than a juggernaut, just put it that way. They have tons of problems. Giants having problems, Cowboys having problems. So the AFC really has started to kind of take off. And one of the games that we wanted to see who going to be a test of who is actually, the big dogs in the AFC was the Jags and the Chiefs. On the pick'em, I actually went with the Jags. I broke one of my big rules of never bet against KC and Arrowhead. That was stupid on my part. They always somehow seem to get 3 or 4 turnovers whenever they're playing in Arrowhead. So, Coach Christopher, why don't we start with you first? What did you take from that Chiefs-Jags game? What technically statistics-wise, Mahomes' first game, but they came out there and they showed the AFC who's boss.
Oh, absolutely. It's exciting to watch Mahomes play. We talked about, let's see, the first few games that he had, we really didn't think that he was challenged. And so this was the game that we were anticipating a real challenge from a very good defense with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we got exactly what we expected. Kansas City, early in the season, and this has always been the thing, Kansas City, and Andy Reid always has these teams prepared in the early season. Sometimes in the tail end of the season, they start to fail and limp their way into the playoffs. But we got a really good, exciting game, a really good defensive game in that same respect. And you saw the maturity of Mahomes and the talent of Mahomes. We've been week after week. He shows us something more, and it's starting to get exciting. We got to challenge a little bit with the running game. And we'll see how that starts to migrate with some of the injuries that they have there. And then, Blake Bortles, Jacksonville, it's always my question mark is which Blake Bortles are we going to get? And but I think Kansas City has established themselves. Earlier in the season, I thought that maybe the Chargers would be the favorite in the AFC West, but Kansas City looks pretty strong. They look pretty good. So we've yet to see.
Yeah, sorry about that. My mic again. Anyway, the Kansas City Chiefs. This surprised me. This is something that I I mean, this is the game that was the biggest surprise to me. I expected that Jaguars defense to slow down Mahomes and the Kansas City offense. Instead, they gave up the most points this season that the Jaguars have given up, 30 points. And, they weren't able to do anything, which isn't a surprise to me about Blake Bortles, even though, his numbers may look good in the final tally. As far as yards thrown, I believe he gave up, was it 4 interceptions? Something like that. And they were only able to muster 14 points. So this was a surprise to me that the Jaguars didn't have a better result at all in any phase than they did. And the Chiefs just showed that they are the king of the AFC right now. Not expecting that to keep up because the Chiefs' defense is still allowing 400 passing yards. Three out of 5 games, they've given up 400-plus passing yards. And that's going to come back and catch up to them. That offense is high octane, but every high octane vehicle runs out of gas at some point, and has to slow down. I picked the Jaguars in this, and it was one of those that were like, what? I'm watching the game and the scores, and I'm going, what? So I'm not going to say that take anything from the Chiefs. This is a real deal. The Chiefs are the real deal. Let's see how they maintain it. We remember last year they were the real deal around this time of year, last year with a quarterback, not as a quarterback. Mahomes is proving to be, let's say he's the Garoppolo right now, because it's not a big sample set, but we're going to say that he's a Garoppolo right now, the new Garoppolo, until you prove otherwise. Make him tell me that he's not as good as he appears.
Well, isn't that what we talked about earlier, Blaine, when we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago? The difference of this game was the play that we got out of Blake Bortles. And for the most part of that, we expect Kansas City to give up. We thought this would be a high-scoring game because we expected Kansas City to give up a lot of points. But on that respect, we expected Blake Bortles to be able to, keep up with that. They do a lot of creative stuff on offense, and Jacksonville is one of the teams I thought would be able to cover, but we didn't get that. And again, to me, it's the play of the quarterback. This week was a big week. It was a TV week. Against a really good quarterback, and that's what we got out of Blake Bortles.
Yeah, and I think you talked about how you were wanting to see is something I want to see is how this Jags defense goes up against this new look offense that Andy Reid just run out there. And I think it's similar to what's going on with the Rams is they just don't have personnel and classic NFL defenses to keep up with what these guys are doing. And it's not fair. These teams are scoring 30 points a game over and over again. And you're starting to see some of these three safety nickel packages on early downs. That's starting to become something new. They're kind of using the safety more as like a linebacker. You can see the defense has been passed by. It happens. Goes back to the run and shoot, and then it comes with the Tampa 2, and the coaching staffs and you get something that comes out that one side or the other has to figure out. Right now, what they're doing in LA and Kansas City has not been figured out. And if you add to that, you have great offensive minds calling those plays with some great players to boot. Those teams look to be tough to deal with. Something else to look at is the Jaguars just picked up Charles from off the street because they have some more injuries in the backfield. So this week you're gonna have Charles with T.J. Yeldon leading the way. So they're getting beat up a little bit on that team. They're having some issues. You saw that loss to Tennessee, which is when you lose to a team like that, can't score touchdowns. until it looked like Kansas City's defense took their foot off the gas. They were getting pummeled. You also can see the fact that the Kansas City defense had a lot of people missing during preseason. So these first 4 games have kind of been their preseason, and now you're starting to see the defense start to gel a little bit better. They have 3 slot corners playing at the 3-corner positions, but no, those guys are starting to get better. I thought Scandrick played pretty good till the end, which is something I never thought I'd say. But there's I think they're putting it together, and you're going to see them. Now that we're into the second quarter of the season, they're really starting to turn it up. Folks, we keep mentioning this Pick'em show that we have. You can find us at NuckPods, KNUCKPODS, both on Facebook and on Twitter. Our Twitter feed has a bunch of great information, funny stories, so check us out on Twitter. You can check us out on YouTube at Knucklehead Pod Network. We do most of our shows, the Pigskin Preview and the Pick'em shows, as well as some other shows that we've done. All those, you can see them over on YouTube. You can email us at knuckleheadpods@gmail.com. Another game, and it's something that, a lot of people who say, especially, a Packer fan that we know always says, kickers don't matter. You would have won the game. Well, I don't know. You can ask the Packers that. So we'll go to you, Blaine. Why don't you tell us about whether or not kickers can win the game when you miss 4 field goals and an extra point? Speaking obviously about the Detroit game and our Packers.
Right.
Yeah, the Packers, Crosby missing the last field goal, and that would have won the game for them. Kickers are human. What can I say? You look at that, and then you look at the Panthers game where their kicker kicked a 60-yarder to win the game.
And just real quick, all you out there, if you hear this, go online and download Spanish version of Gano Kick with the Spanish announcers. When Graham Gano kicks that, it is the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. It's absolutely awesome. So make sure you check that out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. It's just that the league is starting to see, especially since the rule change from a few years ago of moving the extra point, where the extra point means more now. It's made the value of kickers go up. Not only place kickers, but also punters. And these 2 positions were just ignored and made fun of throughout the history of football, but now they have meanings. They deeply affect the outcome of games, and as you saw with those 2 examples, and even the Raven game that you alluded to earlier, where Justin Tucker's field goal was blocked, where if he had hit that, the Ravens would have had a victory. So the kicking game is to be taken seriously. We can no longer make a joke about it. We can no longer just ignore and say these teams can't say we can get an adequate quick kicker anywhere. Kickers are special now. The new kickers are coming up. They have bigger legs. They can kick for longer distances. They can kick more accurately. They can kick against the elements. Some of these older kickers you're seeing are missing, what these new kickers can kick in their sleep. So it's a transition thing that the NFL is going through that's really understated. Under the radar, but you watch how many games. I'm asking you, how many games did you see the last 2 years where it came down to the final minutes or seconds, and the kicker missed the kick and lost the game? I can tell you one this year, right off Cleveland on the tie against Pittsburgh, where both kickers missed overtime field goals. Then there was the debacle in San Diego last year before they could find a kicker. You look at the Oakland Raiders, and Janikowski is not that kicker anymore. He's not as reliable anymore, and he's missed a few. So 2 years. So you have, it's a very valued position where it wasn't before.
And I'll say on behalf of the kickers, they always get the shortest end of the stick. Let's be honest. If a quarterback throws 4 interceptions in a game, he can come back the next week and play. If a kicker misses 4 kicks in a game, he's probably unemployed the next day. And that's a bit unfair. So, in a sense, like you said, Blaine, they're human too. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. A lot of things play into that. Temperature, weather, the holder has a lot to do with it. Pressure has a lot to do with it, so who knows? But it doesn't take away from their value to the sport, especially in close games like this. A kicker can determine how far back a person starts. A short kick puts a person in 35-yard or better. A good kick keeps them at the 20-yard or under. So, it's the value, and they're unsung. But I will say, we talk about these kickers with these bigger legs coming in, but the accuracy is just not where it used to be. You had guys that had nicknames like Automatica, Grammatica, because you knew they were going to make the kick at the very end. But, how many times have we seen a person miss a bunch of kicks and PATs, like you said, this year? So, I think I agree with everything that you said, Blaine, with the exception of accuracy. I think some of those old school kickers had better accuracy on the better pressure, different game. You kind of knock guys around back then, and they would still come back and boot 50, 60-yarders to win games. So, but, how valuable are these guys? And if the game moves away from kicking, as far as they talk about getting rid of the kickoff and other aspects of that, then a field goal kicker will probably become even more valuable. So,
Coach, I just want to say that you're probably right, but I'm looking at the fact that back some of these older kickers now today's game, you're getting more attempts from 50 plus than I think you used to get, and that's the point that I was getting to. The bigger legs being more accurate, the newer kickers being more accurate with for the longer distances.
Oh, yeah, well, I can agree with that sample size because also teams are scoring a lot more points now than before. Historically, football games were a lot closer. I think, there weren't a whole lot of blowouts that I can recall. Even some of your sorrier teams, I wouldn't say sorrier teams, some of your not as talented teams even had competitive games. So, in that respect, you know what, Blake, you just changed my mind. You are right about that. If you compare sample sizes, then you are looking at a different dynamic. So, I do agree with you. Then, in fact, I agree with everything you said.
One of the few, I don't like how every time when they go to the rule for the competition committee, that's what I was looking for. At the end of the season, the off season, they always add stuff. They never take stuff away. They're like, you know what, this isn't working. Let's take it away. So they always add stuff. You guys have heard me whine about that on the show a bunch of times. One of the things I do like the 30-yard kicks for the extra point. I do like that ad. So getting back to the game though, stop talking about kickers. I think we got to give Green Bay a break because they're missing Allison and they're missing Cobb. They're having some issues on the offensive line. Roger just looks a little healthier, but they don't look like they're on the same page. I think it goes a little deeper. He came back. He pulled a Blake Bortles. I'm not trying to compare Roger to Blake Bortles, but Bortles in the sense that got blown out in the beginning of the game and then came back with a vengeance, put up the stats look a lot better than how I think he played if you watch that game. Jimmy Graham whiffed on some balls. I mean, they don't look. You got Valdez Scantling that came in MVS. He looked okay as a backup. He might be someone that down the line does something for him with Cobb, maybe leaving at the end of the year. But Green Bay does not look that good this year. Detroit, on the other hand, I was the only one that got this pick right in our picking group. They just look like a different team when they play up and they play. This is a team that wasn't trailing once to the Pats or the Packers, but loses to the Jets and the Cowboys. So, it's all about being at home. It's about playing teams that they feel confident with. I love watching Kenny Galladay play. He's a monster out there. Golden Tate's playing good. Kerryon Johnson is just kind of stuck in the fact that they want to give the ball to 4 different people, or else he would be having unbelievable stats for a rookie. They got a lot going for him. So I think that they're doing good, but they're just too Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, depending on who they play, whether home or away, I think, to do any damage. But they're moving forward. And Green Bay, this is a good get-right week for Green Bay because they get to play on Mondays, get the extra day of rest, and they get to play the Niners, which I think they can get right on that game and try and turn it around. But if they keep playing the way they are now, it's going to be a long season for the Cheeseheads. I haven't been too impressed. Why don't we go back to you real quick, Chris, and we'll go to Blaine. Since we kind of talked about kickers more than anything else. What did you see in the Packer Detroit game there, Coach Christopher?
I think I saw vintage NFC North football, if I could describe it that way. You understand what I mean? We saw just some hard-nosed football under some tough conditions, Green Bay is not 100% neat, top to bottom. I still think they need to find a real running back. I know he played running back in high school and stuff like that, and he is a talented guy, but they need they need a running back. They need a Le'Veon Bell type, somebody that can hit you inside and outside. And I don't, not to criticize he's not, but that's just my opinion. And Detroit is starting to get a little groove. They've always been a hard working team, especially, the coach always have them prepared and always have them ready. Look where he came from. He's taken on a system, and he's kind of instilling that Patriot mindset of working hard and establishing a work ethic and a culture. And so, and they've always had talent, and I got the utmost respect for Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford, man, is one of those blue-collar quarterbacks that just goes in there, works hard, gets it done. One of those tough guys that just, man, you got to respect him because he'll take a hit, he'll sacrifice his body, he'll roll out, he'll stretch a play out, he'll make the throw when he needs to. Man, so, I like what they have in Detroit, but I'm just still don't think that they have enough to really be at that top tier of the NFC, especially when you still have to play Green Bay in December. And you think you can say what you want, but they're a hot team in December. They seem to always just like pick it up and start a groove at that time of year, and that's a tough thing to do. I respect what we got at the Lions as far as what we got out of them in their play. But Green Bay has a lot of work to do, and I'm saying that to say I think a lot of that loss was more Green Bay than it was Detroit.
What about you, Baltimore?
First of all, I want to thank you, Chris. You corrected me on the Janikowski being with the Seahawks and not Oakland. I just want the listeners to understand that for me, seeing Janikowski on Oakland for as long as it's sort of like the San Diego Chargers thing where you just keep
exactly.
But as far as this game is concerned, are we saying that? Can we say that defense is coming around for Detroit? I mean, they only gave up 23 this game, and to say that they only gave up 23, we're used to that Detroit defense giving up, consistently giving up a lot more. I'm looking back at the first 5 games. They gave up in the loss in the first week. They gave up 17 points. Then the next week they gave up 30 points. And I'm sorry, no, I'm wrong. That was 48 points they gave. So they gave up 48, then 30, but then they went down to 10. Then they gave up 26 and now 23. I'm not buying on that defense yet. They are able to make the plays when the plays need to be made in these wins. But that's my biggest concern still with this team is the defense plus the balance of the running game with Matt Stafford's arm. Matt Stafford is an exceptional player. He is the offense in this team.
And I think with the defense, a lot of these teams that are just now starting to catch their groove, it's because, let's be honest, most of the teams did not play starters during the preseason. So those preseason games, those 3-4 preseason games that we would have gotten, we're just now starting to get that rhythm now. So I think a lot of that has to do with some of these teams playing well at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the heck happened to that team? Well, some of the teams are just catching their groove at the right time, and it's unfortunate, like if you lose 3 games at this point, that your groove just now gets caught at Game 4, Game 5. In some divisions, that's too late. You don't worry about that, but this NFC North, 2 losses, 3 losses could be the difference of you making the playoffs.
Yeah. If you would have told me that the leader and the best looking team in the NFC North is going to be the Chicago Bears, I would have called you a liar.
Exactly.
But that is the truth, and that's what I was talking about with the NFC. We looked at the NFC. We were thinking the Packers and the Vikings were going to be juggernauts. We thought that the Eagles, even though they had the Super Bowl hangover, they were going to come back and do some damage, and it just hasn't been the case. Hasn't been the case so far, and the NFC North is the best example of it. You're talking to both of you said the same thing. That defense is going to be a little bit problematic, and a balanced team, the offense can have an off day, and the defense can come back and win it. And I've seen on that defense, they can do okay when they're ahead, when they're playing from ahead, like they were against the Patriots and they were this last week. But when they were getting pressed, like what I saw in that Cowboys game, they kind of folded to a not so good team. And that's kind of what worries me, is when you get into those tough games, or when the offense is struggling a little bit, can the defense hold? And I don't think they really can. I think Darius Slay is good. I think they got a couple of good guys up front, but besides that, I don't think that that defense is going to take them too far this year. But once again, I love watching Carry-On. I love watching Galladay. Golden Tate's been my guy from Seattle, so it's fun to watch. But if you look at any NFL season like a game, we just got out of the first quarter, and now we're at the very beginning of the second quarter, moving into the middle part of the second quarter. If it's like a game, you can have a bad first quarter and still turn it around. So it's just kind of getting things felt out. But at this point, if you've had a bad first quarter, you're starting to fall behind, like Coach was saying, you better pick it up. We're going to look at one more game. Here's something that Coach and I will love to talk about, the Seahawks and the Rams. The Rams were the biggest favorites on the day. Everyone, including myself, picked against the Seahawks, even though I'm a diehard Seahawks fan. But, I make my picks to win, not to satisfy my homerism. But I was really, really proud, really impressed with what they did, especially a week when they're coming off of, KJ's still not out there. They just lose Earl Thomas. And actually, I'm going to let you start off with this, Coach, because you're the Ram guy. So why don't you tell me what you saw this week up there? We'll kind of get an outsider's take, and then I'll close it up on the Seahawks. So go ahead, Coach. What did you see?
I'll sum it up the same way I summed up the Detroit and Green Bay game. This was Venice, Seattle, and the Rams. Two guys slugging it out. One thing you know about Pete Carroll, and what's weird is now Pete Carroll is now the senior coach in the whole NFL, right? I think he's the oldest coach in the NFL.
Yeah, because he was second to Coughlin.
Yeah. So now you see why he's been in the league so long. He had this team ready to play, and they came energized. As critical as I am, and you know about this, Chris, when we've talked, as critical as I am about the Seattle offensive line, they played 3 very good quarters, 3.5 very good quarters of football. I'm just going to be honest with you. They tried to take it to the Rams' defensive line for the first part, and they ran the ball very effectively. But this is a staple of Pete Carroll offenses, Pete Carroll teams. They come, they want to control the ball, they want to hit you in the mouth, and they're going to take on the bully. And if the bully is your defensive line, then we're going to attack the bully. And that's exactly what we got. But yet, in this case, at the end, Goliath got the best of David, right? Because then you saw Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald start to impose their will the later the game got. And basically, we had a really exciting, really good football game of leads that were going back and forth, back and forth. It was like Ali versus Foreman or Ali Frazier, just guys slugging it out right there. 2 heavyweights doing it what they do. And it was a really good game. And hats off to the Seattle Seahawks for coming off of a rough start of the season to say, hey, we don't care who you are, how good you are. We're going to give you our best shot. And 33-31, man, that was a pretty good shot, I'll tell you that much. What do you think?
Go ahead,
Okay. Yeah, that it's a division game, and you know these teams that are supposed to that might play a different way or true to themselves, well, however you want to put it, play different. They play up for each other in the division. You saw that with the Ravens and Browns. You saw that with Pittsburgh and the Browns. You saw that in this game. By the way, I've knocked Seattle's offensive line, and they have just Chris Carson has 3 100-plus games straight, and that's the first time they've done it since 2012. They had 3 100-plus games from a rusher in 3 straight games. But I think that this team is coming around. I think I'm not going to say that Seattle's going to be vying was really going to be a viable option for this division. I still say that they have another year or two of retooling to do. I'm not going to say they're rebuilding, but they're retooling. But they're a very impressive win by Seattle, and I picked against them as in the Pick'em show. And kudos to you, Chris, for going, keeping your head straight. I can't do that with my Ravens all the time.
Well, you're right. When the Seahawks are good, I pick them all the time. But I'll tell you what, a couple of things that you guys mentioned, I'll give you stats. Pro Football Focus, the Seahawks over the last 3 games have the number 2 pass defense in the NFL. DJ Fluker coming back, who's just a monster of a man. There was a run where he picked up on Dominican Sue and pancakes. I remember the last time I saw that. Everyone keeps, just because it's repetitive jargon that you hear in all these shows, just how the Seahawks offensive line is bad. So I want to give both you guys credit that you called that out, because that offensive line that played Aaron Donald and those guys was not bad. They think they gave up 2 sacks. Russell stayed pretty clean most of the day. He got hit, but he stayed pretty clean most of the day. And then they bowled him over. Just a quick correction on you that Blaine, one of those games, which makes it even more impressive, one of those games Chris Carson was hurt, and they brought in Mike Davis, who's Mike Davis, exactly. And he had 100 yards against Arizona. But what you said is right. They've had a 100-yard rusher 3 weeks in a row, and that's the first time in a long time they've done that. And then when they're running, now they have the play-action pass, and you have Tyler Lockett is just absolutely scorching. He's got a touchdown in every game. They looked a lot better. And the more important thing about this game, I could also say that they call a horrible hold at the very end of the game while they were in field goal position and knocked them out of field goal position. So they were even closer, which makes it, a little bit tougher to swallow. But when you have a group of young guys, like you have Tedrick Thompson, who's just starting at safety after a world-class guy like Earl Thomas is out, and all you hear all week is, they suck now because you're in. Because you're in, the team's going to lose. And you have all these injuries. You have these young guys, first-time players. You have a rookie on the right corner. You have a second-year player on the left corner. You have Bradley McDougall in the second year in the system. And when you can go and pop and go toe-to-toe with a team like this, you have these, Mike Davis and Chris Carson are getting in their first full seasons of being running backs in the NFL. All these offensive linemen that are playing together for the first time, all they hear from everybody, the offensive line's the worst, the offensive line's the worst. And when you can stand up in a game like this after a couple of wins, this is the kind of game I think if the Seahawks go on a run, you're going to look back and say that was the game that gave them the confidence that they're going to need for the rest of the year. Yeah, I'm not saying they're going to go, this is going to be, they're going to run the table, but I think the league and everybody else is going to look at them a lot differently, and they're going to start playing a lot differently, because when you go up against Goliath and you could have won that game and you went toe-to-toe, took the best they had, and out-physical them, because they did out-physical the Rams in that game.
I agree.
They did out-physical them, and that brings back, hey, maybe we aren't the leftovers in the Legion of Boom. We're our own thing, and they can do some stuff. Let's move on real quick, too. Let's stop looking back and let's look forward. The NFC East is an absolute mess, and, the best team in the league just got destroyed last night. So this Thursday, we have 2 teams that we thought were going to be in very different places at the beginning of the year. In the Giants and the Eagles. So why don't we start with you, Blaine? Kind of give us an idea of what you think, see in this game, and then we'll go to you, Coach, and I'll close it out with some stats.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the Eagles. Is it the Super Bowl hangover, or maybe complacency with some of the players, or the coaching? You'd expect that team that finished so strongly at the end of the season, you expect that to carry over into the next season. At least I do. You have the same players, and I'm going to ask you guys: do you think it's the hangover? Because it's taking them a lot longer to get on track than I thought that it would take.
Go ahead, Coach.
I don't know that it's a hangover. What I do believe, and I said it earlier, a lot of coaches understand the wear and tear of a 16-game season. So a lot of these guys didn't get a whole lot of reps in the preseason and earlier in the time frame. And I think they're just now starting to happen right now. I think Philadelphia's defense is going to be absolutely flying, and we know that because that is a staple of their team. The insurgence of the offense has been recent, but their defense is going to be fine. And the more they get chemistry with Carson Wentz coming back and getting established, and I still think that he's kind of limited in his mobility. He's not 100% yet, but he's still good enough to be out there. He's going to play himself into some of this shape. But I think people realize that, and I think they're putting the pressure on Philadelphia, and they're giving teams their best shot. I mean, teams are getting Philadelphia is getting teams' best shot, and I think that's more the case than anything when it comes down to them. I'm not really worried about them right now. A lot of teams right now, because of, again, the preseason, that's why I say a lot of this is yet to be seen, because the first 4 games were most of these guys' preseason.
Yeah, and I would say that there's some things that are a little bit off more than just a Super Bowl hangover, but the Super Bowl hangover is real. That's why it's a thing. It's not just how much, those extra games take something out of you. That's true. There's all the off-season stuff. There's just a lot that goes into the Super Bowl hangover. There's expectations. Mm-hmm. There's people getting, taken off your team because they become hot commodities. The Eagles really didn't have to deal with that too much. They also had some injuries. But here's a couple of stats.
And that's a big part.
Yeah, here's a couple of things.
I was just going to add that, Chris. I'm sorry about that. But that's a big deal, what you just mentioned, the injuries as well, because if once they find out a good, solid running game that'll help open up their play-action pass, then Carson Wentz will be able to get the ball vertical a little bit, and a running game will take some of the pressure off of teams being able to blitz him because, they know that he's not as mobile as he could be. But you're absolutely right, man. You're dead on with that.
Yeah, so here, I'm gonna go over something real quick just so I can make sure I fit it in here. And I'm gonna kind of paraphrase the best follow on Twitter and in the industry by far is Evan Silva from RotoWorld, NBC RotoWorld. And here's a couple of interesting stats and just little snippets that he put out there. New York Giants are last in the NFL in sacks, 27 to QB hits, and 33, and they've allowed over 33 points in back-to-back games. The Eagles have a horrible offensive line, and they're getting hit a bunch. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, without going into too much stats. Everyone falls asleep. But basically, the Eagles are having a hard time keeping the pocket and getting Wentz a chance to get his rhythm back. And don't forget, he is coming back off a year-long injury. And the Giants don't have a pass rush, basically, and they're giving up a lot of passing yards and running yards. So what you're looking at, and they're almost more of a pass funnel defense. This could be a get right for the Eagle and for Carson Wentz. And on the other side, Eli Manning has had some of his best games, and last year his 2 best games were against Jim Swartz defenses. So this might even be something that's going to be a little bit of a shootout. But I think this is a game we're going to see if the Eagles can get right and the Giants. Just as a first part of the Pick'em show for this week, I'm going with the Eagles, by the way. Blaine, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think your pick is safe though, Chris. You know, the Eagles are going to be able to turn this around. You know, as far as like stepping back up into their realm. I'm not sure if I'm sold on that Super Bowl hangover thing, man. I'm not sure how real that is, but you know, just until Blaine picks. You know, why do you feel that? Like, what evidence do you have, or you call it a hangover because of their losses? What?
We dropped Blaine there. Yeah, we dropped Blaine there, no problem.
Yeah.
Have a little phone issue. The Super Bowl hangover, and it's really big for the losers in the Super Bowl. But the Super Bowl hangover, I mean, if you want proof of it, you know, how many teams besides the Patriots can go back to back? Blaine, what did you think about the Super Bowl hangover?
Yeah, I wasn't quite synced up with you guys. I'm sorry. The reason I say Super Bowl hangover is when you have so many players coming back from especially, you know, a core coming back from the previous season who had gelled so well before and to dominate and win as they did in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. You don't expect them to have a problem gelling, and as they seem to be doing coming back the next season. And when I say Super Bowl hangovers, it's whether it's a mental letdown and that this would be a good. Unfortunately, he's not. We can't ask him. Coach Shane McGowan would give us a good feedback on this. But is it a mental letdown, or is it the other teams are caught up with them because of tape? You know, being able to study what they've been doing and had the whole off season to prepare for them. You said that offensive line has been giving up a lot of hits. They gave up another 3 sacks on Wentz this week. It's just that it's something that's off, you know, in sync with this team, and it seems to happen with teams that win the Super Bowl. Usually they don't make it back to the playoffs the next season. So, as you said, I think it's a real thing, Chris. I think it's something that's not just a myth that people blame for a team underperforming. I think it's really a real factor, and I just wonder if this is what's going on with the Eagles, and I believe that is what's going on with the Eagles.
So, why don't we get your pick for the game here? We'll make the first pick of the Pick'em show before Friday.
I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Absolutely.
I think they're going to turn it around. I think they'll turn it around. I'm waiting
Coach
for them to
Taylor,
turn
why
it
don't you
around.
give it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. Coach Taylor, why don't you give us your pick and a couple of minutes of explanation why, and then we'll close out.
I'll do better than that. I'll give you a score. I'm going to take the Eagles 31-28, and I'm going to tell you why. I really think that I really think that New York is going to develop its play action, you know, with Saquon and Odell, you know, and we're seeing a little bit of that already starting to flourish. And those other guys are going to start getting a lot of looks because you're going to have to give so much attention to Saquon and to Odell. So with that, it'll happen for them as soon as they start to figure it out. However, I do believe that the Eagles have, again, the defense that's just going to be able, and the defense can score. That's another big thing. They're always a threat. They give you a short field because they pin their ears back and they come. And so and I also believe that they're just better coached at this point in time. Talking about the Eagles. So that's my prediction for this week, bro.
All right, cool. I think all those make sense, and that kind of breakdown is what you can expect from us on a Friday Pick'em show at Spreaker.com/NuckPod. Once again, at NuckPods for both Twitter and Facebook. We will be back here for our normal 90 minutes next Tuesday live here on Mancini Sports, and you can find us at Knucklehead Pod Network on YouTube. So thanks a lot, guys. And big congrats to Drew Brees, one of those guys that makes you realize that you just kind of failed at life because he was just so good and so classy and doing everything right. Just a amazing moment to witness on TV last night. It was really special. So that's it for us. Mr. Mancini, take us home. Mr. Mancini.
Oh, well, in that respect, man, hey, Chris, thanks a lot for having me on today, man. And Blaine, it's always a pleasure when we get a chance to talk football because it's a thing we love so much and we get a chance to, brag about our teams a little bit. But one thing I love is, we're able to put down our loyalty and not put down our loyalty, but look past our loyalty and call it down, call it a spade and call a club a club. So, kudos. And, I had a bad week on my pickup last week, but I'll be rebounding this week, guys. Expect me back in the top 2 again this week.
We all have them, Coach, and you're always welcome, and you're part of the family. You're always welcome on. So anytime you want to come on, let us know.
Hey, Blaine, why don't you take us out with a quick with 30 seconds of respect to Drew Brees, and then we'll close it out for Mr. Mancini.
You got it. I thought you wanted me to sing, but okay, I'll talk. Yeah, Drew Brees. Congratulations, Drew Brees, hitting the 500 club, almost doing 2 records in one night. He's going to get that touchdown in 2 weeks against the Ravens. Not saying that he's going to win that game, but you can't shut him. You can't look at anybody and shut him out.
Right.
The guy is fantastic. He's a class act. The kind of poster guy, the face that you want to put on the NFL, and great role model for the kids.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Well,
and
that's it, folks. We got to go. That's it, folks. Next week we'll get them. Thanks. Bye.